they want a permanent US base near Kaya for joint operations against armed groups. A heavy silence settled over the room, the weight of the decision palpable. Traore stood and approached the window, gazing at the dimly lit popular quarters where electricity flickered despite his government's reforms. "What about our agreements with Moscow and Beijing?" he asked his. Back to the room, Salifu, the foreign affairs advisor, replied, "The Russians will be displeased. Our military cooperation with them would be at risk. The Chinese mining project in the east would directly compete with the Americans' plans." Traore rubbed his temples, the clock ticking past 4 a.m., fatigue gnawing at the edges of his resolve. "What do our Malian and Guinean brothers think?" Traore asked, referring to the Sahel States Alliance, led by fellow military leaders. "I spoke with the Sini Goita in Mali." Salifu answered. "He urges extreme caution. They received a similar offer last month and declined." The door creaked open, and Fatimata, the young economic analyst Traore had recruited from the Burkina Faso diaspora, entered with a thick dossier. "Mr. President," she said, her voice firm, "I've studied mining contracts signed by other African nations with Western multinationals over the past decade." She projected a chart onto the wall. "In every case, actual benefits to local populations fell 65% short of initial promises. International arbitration clauses consistently favored foreign companies in disputes." Traore scanned the documents, his face a mask of composure. He turned to an old colonial-era map of Burkina Faso, framed on the wall, a stark reminder of past exploitation. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said at last, his voice resolute, "I believe we have our answer. Prepare the response for tomorrow, and inform our African allies immediately," he instructed. As the team dispersed, Traore remained alone, pulling a worn photo of Thomas Sankara from his pocket. "Guide us, comrade," he whispered, his voice barely audible. By mid-morning, the White House connection was re-established. In the palace's conference room, Traore sat surrounded by his ministers and advisors, all in formal attire. On the screen, Donald Trump appeared, exuding confidence, flanked by his Secretary of State and corporate executives. "Captain Traore," Trump began, his tone upbeat, "I trust you've given our generous proposal the thought it deserves. My team's ready to deploy advisors next week." Traore adjusted his red beret, his expression calm but unyielding. Outside, the city buzzed with life, children playing in dusty streets, vendors haggling under the sun. The weight of their future rested on this moment. "Mr. President," Traore replied, "we've studied your offer thoroughly, and we're prepared to respond." Fatimata, standing quietly by the door, exchanged a glance with Salifu. "This is it," she whispered. "He's going to show the world what sovereignty means." Traore's next words would not only shape Burkina Faso's path, but also send ripples across the continent, a testament to a leader who dared to prioritize his people over fleeting promises. Comment number 2. If you respect President Traore's resolve in safeguarding Burkina Faso's future. Donald Trump leaned forward, his enthusiasm barely contained. "We're ready to send military advisors next week. Captain, this deal's a winner." Captain Ibrahim Traore, his expression serene yet resolute, adjusted his red beret with deliberate care. "Mr. President," he began, his voice calm, "we deeply appreciate your offer and have reviewed it thoroughly." A tense silence filled the room. On the American side, advisors exchanged confident smiles, anticipating agreement. In Ouagadougou, Traore's team sat with solemn determination. However, Traore continued firmly, "Burkina Faso must respectfully decline your proposal." Trump's smile vanished, replaced by a look of disbelief. His advisors shifted uncomfortably, exchanging puzzled glances. "I don't follow," Trump stammered, his tone sharp. "This is an extraordinary offer, Captain. No one will top it." Traore tilted his head slightly, unshaken. "I understand, Mr. President. But our decision isn't driven solely by short-term economic gains. He straightened in his chair, his presence commanding. For too long, Africa's wealth has been siphoned off, leaving our people in poverty. Promises of investment and progress have rarely delivered as pledged. Trump's face darkened. So you'd rather deal with the Russians and Chinese? They'll exploit you worse than anyone. Traore's response was measured but unyielding. We partner with those who honor our sovereignty and terms. Burkina Faso welcomes international cooperation, but it must be rooted in equality and mutual respect. He nodded to Minister Tapsoba, who spoke up. We're open to mining partnerships, but on our conditions. Local processing of raw materials, training for our youth, technology transfers, and majority state ownership in extraction companies. Trump's irritation was palpable. Those terms are unrealistic. No American company will agree to that. Fatimata, the young economic analyst, interjected with quiet confidence. Other nations have secured similar terms globally. The issue isn't their feasibility, but that African countries are often seen as too weak to demand them. Traore resumed, his voice steady. Mr. President, Burkina Faso is charting a new path. We aim to control our destiny. Our resources must first serve our people, who have endured too much for too long. He paused, letting his words settle. As for terrorism, we value your offer, but we prefer to bolster our own forces and those of our regional allies. History shows foreign military bases often bring more complications than solutions. Trump, now visibly angry, leaned closer to the camera. You're making a huge mistake, Captain. Without us, your country will stay unstable and poor. This offer won't come again. Traore met his gaze unflinchingly. It's a risk we're prepared to take. Mr. President, Burkina Faso chooses the hard but honorable path of true sovereignty. With a faint smile, he added, as our national hero. Thomas Sankara said, "He who does not defend his wealth will never enjoy it." The connection cut abruptly from the American side. In the Burkina Faso conference room, a reverent silence held for a moment. Then the Minister of Communications sprang up. "I need to brief our national media. This historic decision must reach our people, unbeknownst to all." An American aide, moved by Traore's principled stand, had secretly recorded the exchange. Outside the Ouagadougou, morning buzzed with life market stalls opening, children laughing in the dusty streets.